Why would we trust you?
Stand down.
Negative, Commander.
It's a funny thing with season finales. They can often go one of two ways. Either they culminate in such a way that it fails to meet your idealized conclusion, or it surpasses any expectations so much so that you forgot what you'd even imagined prior to watching it. Examples of this idea, respectively, could be Season 3 of The Clone Wars, which wraps up with an enjoyable and daring outing with Ahsoka, but doesn't set up anything for the next season or align with any of the previous events throughout its 22-episode run.
Well, that's just lazy writing.
Whereas Star Wars Rebels' fourth season brought all of our recurring characters together, alongside our lead protagonists and a forgettable storyline from earlier in the series to round out a perfectly executed fourth season arc against one of the show's more formidable foes in the most holistic way possible, and sets up a potential storyline to be explored in the future.
Good job.
Now compare these examples to what we got here with this two-part season finale for the Bad Batch's first outing, and I feel it's fair to say that we got a frustrating but cathartic conclusion to the journeys of all involved for now, and received some important information regarding the future of Kamino. Before I get into how I felt about this, let me explain what transpires, and bear in mind that I will be covering both of the episodes in this review. That includes Return to Kamino and Kamino Lost. Return to Kamino opens on Hunter imprisoned with Crosshair wiring Hunter's comm to bring the crew to them. We cut to the crew making repairs to the Marauder while Wrecker delivers Gregor to Sid. Omega is growing frustrated and desperate to go rescue Hunter, with Echo trying to calm her down. Tech picks up on Hunter's comm and tracks him to Kamino. Meanwhile, Crosshair arrives on Kamino with Hunter in tow, and after some beratement from Rampart, he's instructed to make it quick.
That's what she said!
We cut back to the crew, who make their way, thanks to Omega, to a private landing pad in the middle of the ocean that Nala Se used to take them directly to her isolated facility under the waters, where Omega reveals it's where both her and the Batchers, minus Echo, were created as part of her own experiments. They reunite with AZ-3, who hid while the evacuations were underway, and they press forward into the facility as they plan to intercept Crosshair and recover Hunter without engaging in a fight.
Not a great plan.
As this unfolds, Crosshair expresses the betrayal he felt when he believed the crew just moved on without him and didn't bother trying to save him. Hunter rebuffs this, correcting his assumptions, stating he left them no choice and that he chose the wrong side, but isn't willing to blame him just yet as he feels the inhibitor chip is to blame. We align all of their movements after this to one location, where it all began, in the training room. The final time we saw the group work cohesively, and where Crosshair offers the chance for their brotherhood to continue so long as they join the Empire.
Well, this sucks.
Hunter rejects this sentiment, wondering how they could even trust him again, and Crosshair shows him this by using his reflectors and bouncing shots off into his new squad.
What?
Hunter, still unsure, is given a warning from Crosshair to choose wisely, and as they reach the crescendo in this moment, a group of training droids arrive packing heat thanks to Omega. It's in this moment where we're reminded how good the gang looks together, but is short-lived as Hunter stuns Crosshair after and says that they're taking him with them. As the fight broke out, the remaining ES trooper spots this and reports it back to Rampart. As they make the moves to escape the now abandoned facility and form a home, Tarkin instructs Rampart to open fire onto Poker City, closing on it, beginning to submerge into the waters with our heroes trapped inside. And as we begin Kamino Lost, we open onto Poker City as the ruins descend into the ocean with the Empire raining down fire. As our heroes slide down due to the horizontal axis the station is shifted to, Rampart orders a ceasefire and the Empire to part Kamino. As they leave, Omega, Crosshair and AZ-3 get cut off due to the doors shutting down. The room quickly starts to fill with water and Omega rescues Crosshair from drowning, and thanks to Wrecker they reunite with the crew sliding through the doors as he manages to pull them apart. After some back and forth between Crosshair and the group at various points, they find themselves in their old quarters. From here, they initially try to scale down the tube back to the Marauder. However, after the excess power is used to deter a creature that steadily chases them, the crew are stuck traversing the desolate halls once again, until they find themselves in Nalisay's old lab, where Crosshair finds out that that was where they're created. After some jabs back and forth about loyalty and the duty that Crosshair believes they have to answer to, Tech deduces that using the birthing pods are the best option to float back to the surface. When the question arises of how they get out of there safely, Crosshair suggests using AZ to guide them up. He agrees and they blast their way out, with AZ having to swim back down at one point to release Omega's pod from debris, which exhausts his remaining power and he shuts down. Omega opens her pod to try and retrieve him, but isn't strong enough to lift him up and swim back. As the boys try to figure out a way to save her, Crosshair repays the favour from earlier by saving Omega and latching onto AZ to pull them both back up. As they paddle back to the Marauder, they watch as day breaks over the remnants of Topoka City and the crew gear up to leave, but offer Crosshair a chance to come with them, which he rejects. Omega tells him that he's still their brother and hers too, and we close on the Imperial base on the planet of Tantus, far away, where Nalisay is being delivered to a scientist, who's donning a similar jacket with the cloning insignias to Dr. Pershing from The Mandalorian. Phew, that was a lot to get through. So, here we are, the finale. Now, just a reminder, a finale is generally supposed to send audiences home happy, with answers to season-long questions, provide explanations for the thematic subtext that have underlined the overarching plot, and set up our characters for their future trajectories. Quite frankly, I think they achieved just about all of that in this, especially now having Season 2 provide some answers as to what became of our crew, what becomes of Crosshair, and it moves us forward into the next phase of the Clone Army. Throughout this, we've seen the Batchers go through a journey of self-discovery, establish new relationships in times of unease, where trust is a precious commodity, and deal with interpersonal conflicts as they determine what their futures will be. From a character building standpoint, this series hit the nail on the head when it came to the Batchers, and never more so than here. From the beginning, this show had two responsibilities on its shoulders. Firstly, it needed to reintroduce the crew from their brief introduction in the Clone Wars and expand on who they were. Then secondly, it needed to balance a wider narrative surrounding the development of the Empire whilst dealing with the implosion of the group and the fallout that comes from that. With all that to handle, I firmly believe they handled it the best they could, with the only shortcoming being episode 13, Infested. To help my head with the review and in the editing stages, let's break this down bit by bit. Starting with the crucial aspect that needs to be focused as we close out on Season 1, the crew. I'll get to the Batchers shortly, but I want to spend a second with Crosshair, cause fuck me if this show doesn't want to. As it currently sits, and this is being recorded before episode 11 of Season 2 comes out, so there's every potential he might be in that, but Crosshair has only appeared in 10 out of the 26 episodes currently aired.
What? 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 What?
That is crazy to think, given he was an essential member of this team and the direct line to witnessing the early stages of the Empire's growth, but that's all we've had thus far. And whilst I appreciate the limited use of his character, as it made him feel like an intimidating presence anytime he was on screen, and a greater wildcard to the show, as you would struggle to predict what his actions would be, it's especially frustrating when he's the one character you want to learn more about psychologically, especially now with what we've seen play out in Season 2. Ultimately, I'm left conflicted about Crosshair because when he's used very effectively, but with how little he's around, I find myself struggling to be concerned about his well-being or his future, when we already know that his motives are quite simple and we've received the explanations we need from him. The only curiosity that remains around him right now is what becomes of him following the clones' dismissal from the Empire. The complexity to his character comes from the conflicted storm that's brewing inside of him throughout the show, where he's clinging so desperately to the only life he's ever known and unable to see another life for himself. The two-parter pulls into question the inhibitor chip, as Hunter was prepared to be lenient with him when he thought it was that was making the decisions for him, and that he had no control over what he said, but he claims the chip is gone, something of which is still widely debated. My hot take, if you want to call it that, is that it is gone, just not removed. I think the burn marks on his head shorted it out, and if it was removed, then the scarring would just merge much with the marks he already has. At the end of the day, he's driven by the goal of servitude. His entire existence is predicated on that fact, and for all the ambition that he might possess, Hunter's right. All he'll ever be is another number. He sees little value in himself or the potential that he has. Even when Cody in Season 2 draws up on the value of their efforts, that's of little concern for him as he just responds like a drone. The work done with his character here is without a doubt the most compelling we've had, certainly when interacting with the members of the batch, and playing around with that moral ambiguity that many believe he's in. As I mentioned, his spats with Hunter went as they needed to go, with Hunter getting the last word. Then cut to Wrecker wishing that he tried to come back if he truly had the independence he claims. Was one of the most emotionally weighted moments in this finale. Then, most interestingly for me, was Tech's response. Tech can see the nature to Crosshair and the logical conclusions that he's drawn, and can understand why he acts that way, but Tech pretty much confirms that he's incapable of change and that he's unlikely to return to them despite Wrecker and Omega's beliefs. Then lastly, Omega. Bookending their first encounter where she believed it was the chip dictating his actions, but to have this moment now where she wished it was, but still believes that there's good in him was brilliant to see, and did receive a good payoff to a small degree with him saving her by the end, and teasing the possibility that he does exist within that grey area. The only disappointing aspect to this was the lack of interaction with Echo. I understand that there wouldn't need to be as Echo came in late, and due to his stoic nature of his character, it wouldn't make much sense for Echo to have an emotional attachment to Crosshair as the others would, especially as Crosshair was the only dismissive one during the original mission to save Echo from Skako Minor, and they likely got along by virtue of enduring together, but beyond that, I don't blame the writers for skipping over this part, but it still would have been nice as well to see a thought or two from him. Anyway, knowing now at least what happened to Crosshair since the crew departed without him, it begs the question where he stands with them now and how he feels about his loyalties to the Empire, especially since his interaction with Cody left him alone once again. I particularly love that everyone got to receive a moment to shine in this duology, with Echo and Omega coming up strong and getting them to Kamino, then Tech playing the larger role in getting them out, then AZ getting them to safety, and Crosshair riding the line between good or not and saving Omega by the end. Hunter certainly acted more as a MacGuffin, to be honest, with a lot of his arc completed throughout the season, which was necessary to allow the others to step up. It gave Omega especially the room to step up and take control, leading the charge with Echo in this, which feeds into what I mentioned in the beginning, where a finale should set up a character's future trajectory, and this does that beautifully. Wrecker sadly didn't have much to offer in this other than the emotional weight when confronting Crosshair and providing an insight to his thoughts about this, but otherwise everyone got a moment. Aside from the crew, the last notes go to Nalase and the destruction of Kamino. It was shocking to see Topoka City fall, a location that Star Wars fans have known for a little over 20 years just blown up in the blink of an eye. The moves that Tarkin and Rampart made with this was smart though, and to incorporate it later down the line to bite Rampart in the ass in Season 2 was brilliant use of Chekhov's gun. If their plan ultimately is to utilise cloning tech in the future, then you'd want to isolate it so that only you possess it, and even taking the lead scientist with you. The fact that Nala Se is out there somewhere being forced to either replicate or improve upon the cloning capabilities is rather unnerving, when you consider that Snoke and Palpatine are both clones in Episode 9. So if that was two paths that they went down, what else could they actually do with her? Anyway, for an opening season, if you were willing to stick it out, you were in for a treat, and the finale in my mind deals out the best results for our characters going forward, as their next moves are befitting of them, even with drastic changes in Season 2's midpoint. The character studies, the acting, animation, music and episodic plots made for an incredible viewing experience, and I would honestly recommend that you go out your way to check out The Bad Batch if you've not already.
Do it.
That's all I've got now though, folks. Thank you so much for joining me week to week for these reviews. They've been a ton of fun and made even better by your enjoyment of them. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe for my Season 2 breakdowns and reviews, as well as my coverage for The Mandalorian Season 3. Until next time though everybody, thank you once more, and I'll see you very soon. Take care, and may the Force be with you.